What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
It is 12 noon. Welcome back in. This is Man Front on Jocks. A lot of college football talk today as we have pivoted away from the United States men's national team. Their disappointing loss last night to Belgium in the World Cup. But we're less than 2 weeks away from SEC football media days down in Tampa, the unofficial beginning of the SEC football season. Meanwhile, Big 12, Brett Yormark making some news out in Dallas, Texas. They're in Frisco, actually, as Big 12 Media Days has gotten underway, and it'd be a good opportunity to catch up with our good friend John Talty, author of The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban, updated, and now it is coming out in paperback. We're going to talk to him about that and get his feelings about where we are in the wonderful world of college football. John joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. John, hope you're well, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on again.
All right, let's start with The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban. This was a highly successful publication, just an incredible look at the leadership secrets of Nick Saban coming out in paperback. It's been updated. Just give, for those that may not have had an opportunity when it first came out to get a hold of it, just some of the highlights and some of the things that you have added now to the paperback edition.
Yeah, I mean, the general idea, when I wrote it a few years ago, was looking at, whether Coach Saban's approach to football was, applicable outside of it in business and life. And so it's trying to take the things that were so successful for him throughout his career and applying them outside of life, so the process, how you can apply that to yourself, looking at how he recruited and developed both players and coaches to fit his system. There's, how you handle adversity, how you handle success. There's just all these things that I think he was, really good at doing, and, talk to, more than 100 people, coaches, players, all that kind of stuff about, how he was able to do it and how it would apply to you. So that was the general concept. And, that book came out originally in 2022. He was still, of course, coaching at that point. And so we thought it'd be a good opportunity to update it, to add some chapters, looking at, for your career, when's the right time to walk away, how you leave a legacy, things like that, Nick was able to do at those kind of last couple of years. So that'll come out July 28th, and just, will reflect the totality of his career and also his foray into journalism as a College Game Day contributor.
For the people who have read your book, John, what's the most common response? Like, oh, I never thought that was coming, or wow, that really surprised me. What do you get the most from folks?
Well, I think, some of the most fun reactions have been from like Auburn fans or LSU fans or Ole Miss fans or whatever. We're like, I really didn't think I'd like Nick Saban. And then I learned to really respect and appreciate him. And I think you come away from just, again, I think the totality of a career, you kind of can see the full picture of like all of the sacrifices he made, all the little things that led to the big results of those championships. So I think that's something that I hear over and over again. And just, it's been very cool, whether it's hearing from, CEO types who feel like they've gotten something out of it and have bought a ton of copies for their company, or even like there was a teacher of the year in Minnesota that was, taking some of the concepts and teaching his class, which I thought was super cool. And there was no connection there. So that's the kind of things that is like so fulfilling for me, that this book, that again, I wrote 4 years ago, is still kind of living on and still making an impact on people.
I am curious, John, as you look at what he is doing now on television, has he lived up to your expectation of the way he was going to be on ESPN once it was announced?
I think he's been better, honestly. And I think, Pat, as you know, this was something that was long talked about, right? When the book initially came out, it's where it made some news about how he had thought about walking away from coaching, years ago to possibly go to ESPN and College Game Day in particular. So this is something that he has been eyeing for a long time. It was always the thing that made the most sense for him. And I think we knew he was going to be really good at the X's and O's, the analytical breakdown, certainly he has coaching relationships throughout the sport. You knew you'd get some unique insights. But I think he's been more fun, frankly, than I expected. Like, I never could have imagined that Nick Saban would be wearing a Nittany Lion costume as he did for a Penn State game. Like, just the amount of laughter and joking that I think we've seen, like, is far beyond all of the smiles and joking that I saw covering him for a long time. So I think we're seeing probably the most friendly, fun version, publicly at least, of Nick Saban. And in the updated version of the book, I talked to Burton Burns, his longtime lieutenant running backs coach, great coach at Alabama for a long time, and he was telling me, it's like you can almost see the stress was like washed away off of him. Like, you're just seeing like this guy who held himself to such a high standard for so long, and probably how tightly wound that made him. You're seeing that all kind of wash away now, and that's why you're seeing this fun, relaxed version of him that has been great. I think he and Pat McAfee and some others have added a lot to that game day crew that, frankly, was beginning to feel a little stale before he got there.
John Talty, National College Sports Reporter, CBS Sports, at J Talty there on X, joining us as all of our guests do on the Higginbotham Hotline. All right, Nick Saban departing from the coaching world, entering into the broadcasting realm. His successor, Kalen DeBoer. Based on your expectations for that Alabama football program to where it is now, to where it started when he took the reins from Nick, has Kalen DeBoer met, exceeded, fallen short of your expectations?
I guess I would say fallen short, but I also think that the expectations were impossible to live up to, right? I mean, anyone who was going to follow Nick Saban was going to be held to a, frankly, unrealistic level of expectations. That's just the reality of replacing the greatest coach of all time. So it was always going to be very challenging for him. I think where there's some level, I guess, of disappointment, or maybe has not quite met the level of standards that you would hope for, is that I think we got so accustomed to Nick Saban teams just not losing to teams they shouldn't. And I think that's kind of out the window now. Like, this Alabama team is just as capable of beating a very good Georgia team as it is to losing to Vanderbilt or Michigan or Oklahoma or any of these other teams. So I think that's where some of the, that's just not kind of the standard that we've to expect with Alabama. But, making the playoff last year was certainly a step in the right direction. Winning a game was a step in the right direction. I think this year is a critical year, and I think once we have 3 years to really evaluate, it'll be even easier to say whether he met expectation or has fallen short. But as of right now, I would put him in the fallen short category.
All right, speaking of that, Alabama, they have reinvested in Kalen DeBoer with a brand-new contract. In regards to his longevity, if he's in a situation, let's say he makes the college football playoff, but really doesn't sniff the national championship game, how many years do you think Alabama is going to give Kalen DeBoer an opportunity to get this thing right?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, you start with right now, it feels like, Greg Byrne, the athletic director, and Kalen DeBoer are very tied to each other. This was, of course, a critical hire for Greg Byrne. I mean, it was a long-running joke. Like, you don't want to be the guy who has to hire Nick Saban's replacement, and he had to do that. And, made, I think, what was both a sensible yet also bold hire in Kalen DeBoer, and then now giving him a pretty significant raise. I think just even adds to that strength of connection between those two guys. So, it's going to be interesting to see whether there's outside pressure on Byrne and others if things are not able to meet expectations. And what I think might even be more interesting is if he's in that kind of range that you're describing, Pat, does someone like Kalen DeBoer eventually decide, what, this is a pretty hard job. I'm doing pretty well. Maybe it's not being as appreciated as it would elsewhere. Do I consider an outside opportunity the way, Michigan presented itself this past cycle? I could see a scenario where, all right, it's been 5-6 years. We've made a couple playoffs. We've never really gotten on a deep run. Fans are getting antsy. Do I jump back out west to, find a place that maybe appreciates me more and I'm maybe better suited to win? I mean, that's not with any inside knowledge. I just think that's a situation you could see eventually presenting itself in the hypothetical you're talking about.
How do coaches, John, because you talk to a lot of them, nationally, how do they view that job, the Alabama job? Do they view it as the toughest in college football?
I think it's still viewed as a good job, but it's not what it was. And I think we're all aware of that, right? I mean, I think the fact that in Indiana can win a national championship with a former Alabama assistant and Saban disciple, I think proves just how much the world has changed. And I think the reality of the Alabama job now is that you have a tremendous amount of tradition, prestige, fan base support. A lot of that is very strong. It puts you above many other jobs. But the downsides are you're not the wealthiest program. That's been, I think, well established at this point, but wrote about it quite a bit in my book with Armin Gatay and the Price a couple years ago. Like, that's a real issue for Alabama. They've worked very hard to fix that, but they're still not the most moneyed program when it comes to putting together a roster. And you're competing in the SEC. And especially moving to 9 games, the way that we know all these other SEC programs are heavily investing in their rosters and their coaching staff, it's a very challenging league. And there are easier paths to the college football playoff, maybe to a national championship, that don't reside in Tuscaloosa. So, the days of just being able to rule the sport and dominate and build a dynasty the way that Nick Saban did are done. And I don't think that's unique to Alabama. I think that's a reality that a lot of very successful programs are having to deal with right now. But there's no question that the job in 2026 is harder than it was in, say, 2015.
John Talty joining us for a few more minutes from CBS Sports. Joins us on the Higginbotham Hotline. I have to ask you about the Protect College Sports Act. You're as connected as anyone in the game of college football. You talk to a lot of people in D.C. Do you think this has a shot to get out of the Senate?
I've been skeptical from the beginning, and I think you're seeing, for instance, like yesterday, Alabama and Auburn, coming out in joint opposition. I think you're going to see more and more of that play out. There's been a lot of work, as you guys know, just trying to get something, right? I mean, there's been all these various bills and iterations, and, they have a little bit of momentum and then they die off. And this one has more momentum than ones in the past have had. I mean, it's gotten in some ways farther than others have, but there's just still a lot of issues with it. And I think when you have some of the most prominent schools, leaders, executives in opposition to it, it makes it very hard to actually get passed. And I think you're going to see, again, more public like Alabama and Auburn, but also there has been plenty of private lobbying as well against, some of the things in the bill. So if things can't get fixed, if there's not major changes made, then I think it is very unlikely at this point to be passed, especially before those midterm elections in November.
If you had one question that you were able to ask Brett Yormark and you knew he had to answer honestly, what would that question be from you, John?
Well, some of the Texas Tech stuff I think was kind of interesting. I would like to know, how far was he willing to go if Texas Tech took it all the way? Yeah. I mean, we've gotten some resolution there. We know that some of the steps that they made, but I think that's one of them. And I guess, especially with some of the realignment stuff being talked about again, it's, do you truly believe that, say, by 2035, Big 12 will exist as currently constructed, and will you be involved in any way? I think the answer to the second question would be no. The first one, though, I don't know, it'd be interesting.
That would be extremely interesting, to say the very least. In regards to the college football playoff expansion, Brett Yormark said this morning that the conference commissioners, they're starting to have conversations again in regards to what potentially a next meeting or the conversations that will lead into the December decision. What are you hearing on that front? Are we still going to have that stalemate between the Big Ten and the SEC, or is there a little wiggle room where both conferences can kind of come to a decision and maybe, I guess, come to a decision of maybe being a 16 team instead of a 24?
I just don't see a lot of moving to the middle right now. I just don't, from everyone that I've talked to, I think the Big Ten feels like they have a very strong hand right now, and that there is no incentive for them to move to 16 unless it was absolutely assured to them, likely in writing, that it was expanding beyond that in a defined timeline. So I just don't really see that moving. Now, the flip side, I think Greg Sankey has been pretty resolute as to where he stands. The only thing I see really changing there is there enough momentum amongst his constituents to force him to move off of that position? I mean, we saw some sprinklings of that down in Destin, at the beginning of June, late May, where coaches, ADs, others coming out in support of a 24 or so team playoff. Is there a point where the room is all on board with that? It is not to this point, to be clear. But if they got to that point, would that force Greg to come to the table? That would be interesting. I don't see that as likely at this current moment. But, I think this is the challenge of when you gave two very powerful and stubborn in some ways conferences the control over the future of the format. They have to come to a compromise, and since that has been done, they have been unable to do that. And again, if you're the Big Ten, why not keep pushing for what you got? I mean, the current system's working great for you, and if anything, you could argue the SEC needs expansion right now more than the Big Ten does.
That is John Talty, author, The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban, coming out in paperback. You can catch that at your local bookstore. Also, read his work at cbssports.com. They're the National College Football writer. John, always great to catch up. Hope to see you in Tampa in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks so much. John joined us on the Higginbotham hotline. All of our guests join us on that hotline. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services. We continue on. We are live at Social Taco. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. Coming up at 1 o'clock, we'll talk to Dimitri Ravanos, who was doing a lot of texting back and forth with me and Landrum last night during the U.S. men's national team game. He's more of a soccer dude than we are. We'll get his thoughts on the disappointing finish to the World Cup for the Americans. That's all coming up next on Three Man Front. Appreciate John Talty, CBS Sports, author, Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban, joining the program. Great conversation about what's on tap for not only the SEC but college football coming up this fall. Meanwhile, Big 12 Media Days, they got underway today in Frisco, Texas. Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, UCF, Colorado, Houston, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech all in appearance. Brett Yormark said that he would not address the Brendan Sorsby situation. He says he appreciates the question, but that today is not the time to address the issue. The big story coming out of that is that Brett Yormark announced that the Big 12 and Monster Energy, they have entered into a multi-partnership in which Big 12 football will be branded Monster Energy Big 12 Football, which means every football team in the Big 12 Conference will have a Monster Energy logo sponsor patch on their jerseys. That's the same for men's basketball and women's basketball. Very interesting. Ben Portnoy gave some details about the money. He says that right now about $1 million per university, Monster will give a check to them for part of the sponsorship.
If Gatorade was the SEC's, would 15 other member institutions have an issue with it?
Knowing that Powerade is a Coke product and Coke is a big-time sponsor to a lot of other SEC schools, yeah, I believe that would be a problem. And speaking of problems, I know that we are still in the World Cup, and over in Atlanta, Georgia, you want to talk about an upset. This is now getting into very dangerous territory as Argentina is now down 2-0 to Egypt.
This reminds me of Georgia, Alabama.
And that's the second half, right?
Yep, back in December. This is fourth quarter.
You want to talk about sending shockwaves across the international soccer world.
He's already taken his shirt off.
Tarps off, man.
He's taking his shirt off. He scored a goal. He's taking his shirt off, and he's not putting it back on.
Just spray paint his number on there.
I'm hot. I can't even wear a jersey. That's probably why. It's that balmy Atlanta heat inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yep. I mean, that's
2-0 Argentina. Woo, if they get beat.
All right, now, guess what? VAR.
VAR. Good old VAR.
Oh, you know what? That's going to be a red card. That's going to be a red card.
Did he step on him intentionally?
I don't know. Very interesting.
Well, they're really fast when they speed up that VAR.
Yes, they are.
That's SEC-like speed.
Well, remember, they're not supposed to be looking at this in slow motion. Remember?
That's why they sped it up. really, really
They didn't
fast.
say anything. Oh, he's coming back. Up, no goal.
No, he's going no goal.
I told you.
Oh,
Wow.
Stockholm has spoken.
And you still think that soccer is not a corrupt organization?
Boy, they
Having
did.
Argentina one of the top teams in the world.
Well,
they
I will
get a
not-
favorable call on that.
I will not say names, but there was a particular Metro high school football team that back on the day you played at their place on a Friday night and things were going your way as the opposing team. They had a white cap that seemed to always get their games. Let's just say you break one off, taking it to the house,
Yep.
that hanky would come out and get dropped. You think we got that going on? No, everything's on the up and up.
Nah,
I would think Argentina would be a big draw for eyeballs.
I wonder.
Like right now, how many people are tuning in across the world to watch to see if Argentina gets beat?
Yeah.
I feel like they have that. Everybody but Bama.
Well, when
kinda
you
stigma.
had
Or
Messi
Alabama
missed
used
a penalty kick earlier.
To 1-0.
Yep. And now Argentina almost scored. Well, that would have been something after that play.
My prediction is Argentina evens this thing up, and then they win. Win on kicks.
Let's see what we. I'm sitting here looking. Argentina is still a favorite to advance in the tournament. They're at minus 125 right now on a live line.
There's too much time left, Pat.
What does it say? I can't see that far.
It's 61 minutes.
Oh, yeah, plenty of time.
So you got a good 19 plus, 10, 11?
Yeah.
Roughly in a half-hour regulation left. So we'll keep you updated on what's going on in Atlanta, keep you updated on what's going on. Big 12 meetings. Dave Aranda, the Baylor head coach, she was meeting with the media and took full responsibility for the Bears and their woes.
As he should.
And turning over defensive play calling to his defensive coordinator. So Dave Aranda, that is a team that won Alex Golish. And the Auburn Tigers will face as they play in that very stadium we're watching World Cup soccer, Mercedes-Benz, here in the first part of the season.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here looking, seeing if there's any changes with the live line as Argentina just, being down 2-0 as we've learned over the last month, that is something that's very difficult to overcome.
But now just 1-0. This is doable for Argentina.
Yeah, very much so. USA still reeling after last night's disappointing performance. As U.S. goalkeeper Matt Freese, he had a couple brain farts. The Harvard graduate screwed that up from the goal crease. Malik Tillman, that free kick he had, equalized there in the first half. But as I mentioned, it was just a sloppy first half for the U.S. First 45 minutes, the U.S. allowed 11 shots in the first half against Belgium. They allowed a total of 10 shots combined in their first halves against Turkey, Paraguay, Australia, and Bosnia in the World Cup before last night. Balogun and Pulisic, they were just nowhere to be found. They were non-factors last night in the game. That was another very disappointing part of that our very best did not show up.
Yes, and I'm looking at Pochettino potential replacements because it's believed that he's going to be done, that he's going to move on. But somebody's saying that they should contact Pep Guardiola, who was with Manchester City, who had an 11-year coaching run. Sounds good. Manchester, I know that program.
It's a pretty famous soccer club.
That sounds good. Mm-hmm. You could just see the frustration, though, last night on
when he
face.
kicked the
Well, not just that, but talking to his assistant.
Yeah.
That was not relaxed. There was nail biting. There was the frustration, and you could just see him mouthing to his assistants. Boy, we came out and we looked like, what's going on?
Yeah. Now, when he kicked the water bottles, that was a different level of frustration for him.
You think somewhere Shane Beamer's like watching with his family, and he's like, "See,
I'm not the only one.
See, I'm not the only one."
Yeah.
I think he broke his foot, though.
The good news, we're 351 days away from the Women's World Cup in Brazil. The women's national team, they've won 4 World Cups. And how about this? 7 years ago to the day, on this day 7 years ago, the United States women's national team became back-to-back World Cup champions. How about that? 7 years ago today.
Wow.
Not bad. So they get ready for Brazil, is where the Women's World Cup will be held starting next June.
Let's do it. Let's run it back.
Less than a year, we will be watching, hopefully about this time, you'll be watching the U.S. still involved in the World Cup.
Well, that'd be great.
Very good stuff.
We still have the U.S. women.
Yep.
How many times has a man in this country said that?
A few times, I should say.
Yes.
You know, Abide Roofing, that is the company you need to call when you have any questions about your roofing situation. 205-577-7338, whether your roof has been damaged by one of these recent storms. And, man, we got a toad strangler yesterday out at my house. And if you're worried about your roof showing signs of age, or you simply want the peace of mind that comes with a quality roof over your head, the team at Abide Roofing, they're ready to help you. That number again, 205-577-7338. They're the insurance claim masters. They help me with my insurance claim. They're helping Conrad right now with his roof and his claim. They can help you. I trusted Abide. You should too. 205-577-7338. That's 205-577-7338. Visit their website, abideroof.com.
We're getting closer to the start of the college football season. More predictions are out. Is your team projected to be in the college football playoff? Maybe win a title? We'll get to it next. We continue live from Social Taco in Homewood. It's 3-Man Front.
It is 12:34. Welcome back in. This is 3-Man Front. We are live at Social Taco. And we're keeping our eye on what's going on over in Atlanta, Georgia. It's in the second half between Argentina and Egypt. Atlanta, as we were going to commercial break, they had one goal taken off the board after a VAR, and now Egypt has put it in the net, so they lead 2-0. So this is getting very dangerous now for Argentina.
Very uncomfortable for the Argentinians.
Yes, very much so. Joining us here on set is FSU Dave, who is an international in his previous life. He was an international tennis official. And we had this question come up yesterday on the show in regards to, like, the language barrier that especially, you know, in soccer. And since you have officiated at the highest levels in many different countries, how does that typically work? Is English the one that's predominantly spoken with most of these athletes?
So English is the official language of the Pro Tennis Tour.
Okay.
So your inability to communicate with me is your fault, basically. Now, when I would do matches in Mexico, South America, Spanish countries, Puerto Rico, I would say it in the one language and then repeat it. Okay. So I would do both Spanish and English, or I do French and English. But when the player came to me, then it had to be in English.
Interesting. I did not know that. Did you know that, Nigel?
I did not. Okay. So in broken English, you would be told you're no good. Your eyes, they're terrible.
Sure. And then I'd
blind.
And then I'd pull out my annual check that we had to have done for, you had to have corrected 20/20 vision, and mine was always 20/15. So every now and then I'd get a little wild hair up my, you know what, and I'd pull it out and just smile and say, I actually can see. I may have missed it, but I actually can see.
Now, at the level that you were officiating, I mean, you had eyeballs on you around the world. I mean, you know, watching this stuff. But were you ever in a situation, whether it was McEnroe or anybody else, where you're sitting there in the big chair and then somebody is just taking you to town, and I know you're involved in the moment, but then later on you're going, oh my goodness, how did that look out to Joe Q Public, that Landrum Roberts in Homewood, Alabama that's watching this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the biggest thing that you wanted was to, as you guys know who officiate, you don't want yourself to be the story after the baseball game or football game or tennis match. I mean, I remember the first time I walked on a center court of the U.S. Open. It was 17,500 people, and I'm going on to call serve, which is the hardest line to call. And I look up, and I just thought to myself, don't blank this up.
Yeah.
And it was, because New Yorkers are going to be quick to go, excuse me, sir, you missed that call? But I had one time, Chris Everett's final match, center court, I'm calling the right baseline. Very, very tight call that I called good. And never saw a good.
Now, this was before VAR and all that stuff,
way,
right?
Way before.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they would go to instant replay, but, it didn't have an angle to where you could really see it. And Chrissy, who I've actually known since high school, she went to the other Catholic high school in Fort Lauderdale. Her mom and my mom were best friends, would go to the movies every Friday. She's looking at me.
Oh, wow.
And I can just see the look on her face,
She's like, dang it, Dave.
I never saw a good angle on it. I'm not saying I didn't miss it, but I never saw a good angle. But when I got back, and you guys were old enough for this, my recording for my phone was just like the longest ever. Of all my friends calling me, say that I ruined Chrissy's last match.
Cannot believe you did that.
What was protocol for you if you I guess you have a coach that you could go to, but if you blew a call, and we all do it as officials, would you reach out to the player?
No. Not way after the scene. I've had times when it was a player that, let's say, knew you well, you knew him well, you've been doing, his matches for a long, long time, and there was, a mutual respect, and you're not supposed to use ball marks on hard courts, but there are ball marks that you can see. And I've had a player walk up to the net and say, isn't that the mark 2 inches up from, say, the service line? And I'd have to go, yeah. I go, I missed it. He goes, okay. Now, I'm not doing that 11 times a match. It had to be something very rare, but I'm not going to shove it down his throat that, that's not it when we both know that it is. I mean, so you had to be good with that.
And they respect you more.
Absolutely. They would do the same for you guys, in your sports. But a lot of times, too, you do things for the good of the match. That, let's say, both players are complaining about the lines crew. Both are wound up. And you'd look over and you'd see the new crew starting to assemble to come in. So then you pull out your radio, pretend to talk into it, and then you'd say, hey, guys, I just called for an early crew change. And now they've both calmed down because you have done something. You didn't just sit there and let it go on. Or if it was a far sideline call, said, you could be right, but you don't want me touching those calls, which they didn't. But so you're acknowledging something on their side, while trying to get everything calmed down to help you.
So we had a call earlier, a guy named David who called in. I don't know if you heard the call.
I did.
He was talking about SEC officiating. When you look at, let's take soccer, for example, in this tournament. You follow soccer much closer than any of us on this radio show. But when you watch and what you're seeing at this World Cup, overall, what is the general feeling with the officiating? Are we getting some well-called games, matches, I should say, or is this just a very typical, nondescript type of World Cup when it comes to officiating?
I think overall it's been very good.
Okay.
I mean, there's been some examples, of course, but there always is going to be. And, yeah, when I heard David's call this morning, I consider the ACC officiating to be worse than the SEC.
Well, that's obvious because of Florida State.
Absolutely, but we're used to
2 years ago, you had really good officiating.
Yeah, during the snub.
Yeah, during your snub, right?
Yes.
Well, during the Alabama game, you had outstanding officiating.
And it was an SEC crew, which is the best part. So nobody could say anything about it, and then Conrad couldn't say anything because, it was a total spanking.
So, but overall,
accountability, do you think there should be?
I'm sorry?
Accountability after games,
well,
the white cap?
I was thinking about that, and the Premier League does something interesting in soccer. They put out a report on all the places where the VAR officials were wrong. So they go over all the VAR calls, and they do come out and do that.
Video assisted review for our listeners at home.
Correct. Sorry. And,
no, it's good.
And so then they review them all and say this was right, this was wrong, this is what, the white hat, as you call it, should have done. And it gives a ton of transparency to the overall league. I like it being done on that level rather than the ref just going after the game and having to defend himself. Because then he or she is going to be very defensive-minded. It's easy.
He's had time to look at the film, look at the tape.
Well, do like the director of officiating for the ACC, the SEC, the big whatever. Have them put it out rather than the individual. And don't be afraid to say, Joe Blow on the Florida State game blew the call. Alabama should have had a touchdown. I mean, don't be afraid to say that because you're never going to get it improved unless you do that.
In regards to taking a look back to this tournament and the World Cup, obviously a lot of conversation, a lot of things, and meanwhile it's now 2-1 as Argentina has just put it in. I'm trying to see how much time's left. I think it's, what are we at, 70-something minutes?
78 minutes.
Okay. All right. So
79 minutes now.
Still time for Argentina to make this comeback. The Balogun situation. Your thoughts on that? The way it was handled by FIFA. Once again, you follow this a lot closer than Landrum and I. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I think you guys can relate to this. FIFA is up on a level with the IOC as far as corruptibility. I mean, let's be honest, what we've seen our whole life. But Cristiano Ronaldo had his overturned this year. He was given a 3-game suspension. They reduced it to 1 and a year's probation. Back in the 60s, Brazil had their best player. Same sort of thing. They overturned it right as they came into it. But, as disappointing and as horrible a performance as we gave last night, you've also got to look at nations that have won it. There's only been 7 nations have won the World Cup. Brazil is out. Germany is out. I mean, there are big names that are no longer in this. And so you have to kind of
transfer portal.
There you go.
You got a lot of dudes that are playing for countries where you go, hey, where's that connection?
Well,
the U.S. was one of those teams that had guys that could have played multiple countries.
Yeah, and that could have done that. And last night, I actually thought that Berhalter, who's the son of our former coach, he probably had the best game of anybody when he came in as a sub. Him and Rainier, and he barely missed that one shot wide to the left. But a lot of these guys, they're eligible for multiple countries. Very few countries have a coach from their country.
Yeah.
Interestingly, because our coach is so much better than any American that we have. But and Berhalter's probably going to be getting some offers to go to Europe this summer from MLS, which will be awesome.
Yeah. That is FSU Dave. Appreciate you popping over. I know you had no idea what we were going to ask you, but the officiating has been a major topic of discussion. We actually yesterday, you probably heard the conversation. No, you didn't hear because you were at jury duty yesterday.
How did that go?
I'm here today, keeping my streak going. So they picked 46 other people than the 180 that were.
By the way, Landrum and I had a call into the judge.
Appreciate it.
That if there had been a problem.
Told him that you supported the electric chair.
Yeah, and I also said to the judge, does the fact that I want to watch World Cup this afternoon, with Spain and Portugal, does that enter into it? And she said no. And I said, well, what about tomorrow with 3 Man Front at Social Taco?
And she paused. She thought about it.
She had to think about that one a little bit.
That's smart.
She goes, it is Taco Tuesday, right? And I said, yes, it is. Mix and match.
See, she's.
You should have stood up and said, I've seen every episode of LA Law.
No, it was.
You'd have been struck immediately.
It was interesting, but from when Pat did it, when he did it, you got $10 a day and 2 cents a mile, they told us.
Yep.
And 3 years ago, it went to a whopping 25 and 62.5 cents, and they validated your parking. So
I got the best deal of any. I got in that long line down that hallway, and then they cut the line off. They said, everybody behind the cutoff, you're free to go.
Well, when they first called it, they called up 46 names in alphabetical order. And I was like, okay, are these people getting to go? And then we found out, no, one case had been pled on at the last minute. They took a plea deal, and so these people were leaving, but they had to come back the next day.
Oh, no.
And the rest of us were just calling out our names and giving us our checks in random order.
Wait a second. You got checks like yesterday?
First day check?
Oh, yeah. It's
What?
already.
You get a first day check?
I got mine like 2 weeks later.
It's already in the bank and cleared because I went and looked. I got a check for a whopping $31.25, 10 miles and 1 day.
I had 2 days, and it was $21.
Right,
2
because
days
you
for
got
me.
yeah.
Because Dave's an official.
I had happy hour money.
They take his judgment more seriously than they do yours.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Happy
FSU
hour
Dave.
money, indeed.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We continue on live at Social Taco here on Jocks.
Three-man front as we continue. We're live at Social Taco in Homewood. You blink, and they score again. Argentina's even their match with Egypt 2-2 as they play in the final minutes of regulation there in Atlanta. So it looks
Messi
like
did it.
we'll get some extra time. Yeah,
His
Messi.
8th goal of the tournament. Not bad.
Yeah, so if you were looking for some new blood, I don't know what Egypt's record is in the World Cup, but I would say that Argentina, more prominent history. But if you're looking for that, bad news because it looks like the momentum is on the side of the Argentinians. Teased it earlier, our buddy Bill Bender that we had on from the Sporting News College Football Playoff, their predictions are out. Just on the surface, looking at it, you got 4 teams from the Big Ten that they put in there and 4 teams from the SEC. The 4 teams from the SEC, I don't know, do you believe that this will stand pat? Will we get this when we get to Tampa for SEC Media Days? Texas and Georgia, those are the notable 2. You would immediately, that would come to most mind. But then Oklahoma and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, there's a lot to like there. Oklahoma, I think if I have more confidence, though, in one of those 2, I think I like Ole Miss.
So they got Ole Miss and Oklahoma along with Georgia and Texas making the college football playoff?
Correct.
So you're basically – they're saying that Alabama, LSU, and Texas A&M, who all have 8.5 win totals according to Vegas, that they will be eclipsed by 2 teams that are a 7.5 win total.
Right. And the way that it all breaks down, they've got Texas as a 5 seed, so they got Georgia as your SEC champion. Ole Miss is an 8, taking on a 9 seed Oklahoma. So
Okay.
you'd have an SEC elimination like you did last year with Alabama and Oklahoma there in Norman, and then you get Texas and Boise State.
I'm just curious if the Sporting News looked at Oklahoma's schedule because it is brutal. Brutal.
It is brutal. And John Mateer, how much better is John Mateer going to be in that offense?
Well, see, I look and they, even outside the SEC, they have USC in there. USC has to play Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State. They have all 4 of those teams in there. So maybe they all just beat one another and it all works out. But, yeah, I'm with you, Landrum. If I had to put money on that, I'd go Ole Miss over Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's defense will be really good, and that's what got them to the playoff last year, right? But I'm not sold on John Mateer, and the thumb was truly the reason that he had all those struggles. Now, part of it, sure, but I don't know how much better I expect him to be now, even with a good digit.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think a lot of the things that we saw in the highlights, and rightfully so, that we were wowed by with John Mateer coming in last year. Let's be honest.
So did he play?
The continuation, the extension of some of those plays, that doesn't happen.
Correct.
In big boy football, and it certainly doesn't happen in the SEC and with the schedule that Pat mentioned. So the 12 teams that they do have represented: Boise State at 12, BYU out of the Big 12 at 11, USC at 10, Oklahoma at 9, Ole Miss at 8, Miami at 7, Oregon comes in at number 6, which I don't think that's going to be that much different. Oregon, maybe that's the dark horse because of who you have coming back at quarterback and Dante Moore. But, of course, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Indiana, and Georgia rounding out the Sporting News and who they think is going to be there. And they think that there's a potential that we get an Indiana, Notre Dame, state of college football playoff title game.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because they have Indiana as the 1 seed, so they would win the Big Ten championship again.
They have the easiest schedule of any of these teams.
Yeah, no, they certainly do. And I think they'll be good enough, and I expect them to be back in the playoff or at least heavily contending for a playoff spot. But I don't know if I'd have them as the number one team right now. But, I mean, who had that last year, and that's where they ended up. So you never know.
Yeah, how much drop-off is there going to be? I don't know if there's going to be much with that team just based on their schedule. And
yeah, how good is Josh Hoover? We'll see.
And we might have to wait until the college football playoffs to find out just how good Indiana is.
Well, we found out last year.
We've seen that song and dance before.
Yep.
We continue. We're live here at Social Taco in Homewood. Still all knotted at 2 there in Atlanta. We'll keep you updated there. Dimitri Ravanos, very vocal last night. I'm sure he'll be very vocal today. He's going to join us as well as Pat Ponders in the next hour. You still got time to join us. One more hour to go live from Social Taco in the Square in Homewood. We are 3-Man Front, and we are Jocks.